What's up, everybody? Straw Hats Are Cool here, and we are back with another video. I do want to apologize, as I feel like I do this a lot. I know the upload schedule has been a little bit spotty, and I could just say the same thing I always say, you know, life's busy, yada yada yada, which it is, but moving forward, I am really going to try and do better about having a more consistent upload schedule. Me and my wife were talking the other night and just kind of about life in general and having a more consistent schedule. We're both just a tad bit ADHD and we both procrastinate a little bit, and we constantly just end up putting things off and off and off, and we never end up doing them. But moving forward, we both kind of agreed that we want to do better about that sort of thing and just being more consistent with a week-to-week schedule. And for me, part of that is going to be for my uploads on my channel, so I am really going to be trying harder than ever to do uploads more consistently. And I know I say that a lot, but I really mean it this time, and I'm really going to try and do better. I know I'm a small creator and it isn't that big of a deal to a lot of you, but for me it's just kind of a personal thing too. Like, I like making content, and personally I want to do better about being more consistent. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do over the next couple weeks. This past weekend, this past weekend, I guess, at the time of this recording, but during the first weekend of August, I was at Gencon, so that's part of the reason uploads have been a little spotty, but the other part is that I'm just really bad at procrastinating. And while I was at Gencon, I did manage to get top 32 at the Treasure Cup on Thursday, which was really cool. A little bit unfortunate, we did lose our last round, and if we won that one, we would have made top 8. But unfortunately, we got paired into Nami in the last round. It's a really bad matchup for Lucci, so there wasn't a lot to do there for us to do in that matchup. We didn't do too well at the regional on Saturday. Ended up dropping relatively early and just going out and enjoying the convention with my wife. But I do want to say, and I don't know if you're watching, but one of the viewers of the channel did talk with me during the weekend. They actually managed to go 6-3 at the regional, which is great in my opinion, especially considering that this person told me they picked up the game about 2 months ago, and this was their first big event. And I think going 6-3 is a big achievement, especially if it's your first big event. And the viewer did also say that they owe a lot of that to this channel here, and for me, honestly, that was really one of the highlights of the weekend for me. I was the first viewer to actually approach me in person, and the fact that the content that we are putting out on this channel was helpful to them, and they were able to have a really solid finish at their first big event really means a lot to me. You know, that's part of why I have this channel. It's really what it's all about. I want, myself and everyone who's watching to enjoy and get better at the game together. So really thank you to the viewer who reached out and approached me at Gen Con. It was really heartwarming to hear the kind words you had. I don't know if you watch this video, but if you do, just know that I'm very grateful for all that. And be sure to comment down below if you do end up watching this video. But with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and start really getting into the video. So today we're going to be covering Black Yellow Luffy for the first time in a little while on the channel. And we're going to actually be playing with the list that Egman managed to get top 4 with at the Treasure Cup at Gen Con. So same event I played in, he managed to get top 4 with this at the Gen Con regional. And Black Yellow Luffy is without a doubt one of the strongest decks in the current format. However, I will say this is easily in my opinion, the most difficult deck to pilot correctly in this format at a top level. I've seen some people argue that it's just another Gecko Moria deck, and that it's not a hard deck to play, it's just another brain dead Gecko Moria deck, etc., etc. I'm sorry, but if you think that, you are wrong. This is a very hard deck to play at a top level, and even the best players around will not argue with you on that. It's just a very hard deck to sequence correctly and set yourself up so that you are able to start doing your Gecko Moria things, is where the kind of difficulty with the deck lies. So we're going to be playing this deck today, but I will say I've already recorded some games. I am not the best pilot of the deck. We make a lot of mistakes, but again, like I said, it's kind of part of what this channel's about. We're trying to get better together, and I'm sharing that. Want to share that experience with all of you. This is Eggman's list. Again, shout out to Eggman for the list, and congrats on your top 32 or top 4 finish, I should say. Really awesome for you, and glad to see you finally getting the top that you deserve. So he's playing a couple unique cards in the list that we'll get into here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and just talk about what the leader himself does first. So this is a dual color black and yellow leader with 5,000 power and 4 starting life. It has an effect that says, per the rules, your face-up life cards will be sent to the bottom of your deck instead of your hand. This would mean if, you know, like you have an effect like Katakuri or something that puts a life card face up, and you would take that life due to your opponent attacking into you, that card will not be added to hand, and instead it will be sent to the bottom of your deck. So a bit of a downside there, but the real meat and potatoes is in the secondary effect, of course, which states Dawn times 2, activate main once per turn. You may discard 1 card from your hand, and then if your life is at 0 cards, you may add up to 2 5-cost characters from your hand or trash to your life face up. So here's where kind of that first effect comes into play. You can't just start healing things in and essentially just drawing a bunch of cards or triggering powerful cards. Those cards that you heal will be sent to the bottom of your deck. But this effect is used to set up what the deck is really all about, which is playing characters from our life. So we'll talk more about those cards in a little bit. One thing to note here, though, that it is specifically 5-cost characters. It's not 5-cost and below, it's specifically 5-cost. So you can only add 5-cost characters. So you can't just add anything. You got to make sure you've got those 5-cost characters either in your hand or in your trash. Ideally, we're playing the cards into our life from the trash rather than our hands, so we're not losing hand advantage. But in a pinch, it is a nice bonus that we can also play those cards from our hand. So let's go ahead and talk about the 2-cost 3 brothers real quick, because they all essentially do the same thing. So they all have the effect that states activate main, you may trash this character. Reveal the top card of your life. If it's a 5-cost version of the respective character, being Sabo, Ace, and Luffy, you may play that card, and then up to one of your leaders gets plus 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's turn. So this means that the boost in power your leader gets will be in effect on your opponent's turn. So not only are you getting to play the character out for a reduced cost of effectively only 2, you are also getting that additional 2,000 power. So you get a big swing with your leader. And then on your opponent's turn, if you're able to do at least one of these, you're 7k. If you do 2 of them, you're a 9k. If you're able to get off 3 of them, you'll be an 11k leader. So very similar to the effect that the 9-cost Edward Newgate provides, that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, but on the 2-cost brothers. Now, one very small thing to note, it doesn't come up often, but unlike Newgate, the effect of the boosted power is not until the start of your next turn. It is until the end of your opponent's turn. Now, the only case where this comes up right now with the current cards we have in our card pool is in a matchup where the opponent is running the 10 cost secret rare Monkey D. Luffy from OP07. If they play that card to take an extra turn, you will lose your buffs on the extra turn because your opponent's turn will end and then they'll get another turn. So at the end of your opponent's first turn, you will unfortunately lose the additional power you gain from these 2 cost brothers. But that's the only case where that's even relevant, but I just thought it's something worth mentioning. So the idea is, of course, that we're going to put our 5 cost Sabos, Luffys, we've got 2 Luffys here, both the Egghead one and the one from the starter deck, and our aces into our life through the effect of our leader. And then with the 2 cost brothers, we're going to be able to play those out of our life and then get the buff to our leader. So that's kind of the whole idea of our deck. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the combos that the deck has here in just a minute. But before that, I want to talk about the rest of the cards in the deck. So as we mentioned, we are, of course, running the 5 cost Sabo. There is a 5 cost Sabo in yellow from the starter deck, but the effect on that one's just not really entirely necessary in the current format, in my opinion. But however, the effect on the 5 cost Sabo from OP04 is incredibly powerful and does synergize very well with the deck. This is going to be the most important card in the majority of matchups, as we are in a very removal heavy format. So Sabo is, of course, a 5 cost character so that we can put it in our life with our leader effect. 6,000 power with 1k counter. It has blocker, and on play, as I'm sure most of us are familiar with, all our characters can't be KO'd until the start of our next turn. And then we get to draw 2 trash 2 cards. We get to filter through our deck, help us find the pieces we need, which is important in a combo deck like Black Yellow Luffy. Just making sure we have all the counter we need in the late game as well. Very powerful card. And then just all our stuff is immune. Generally speaking, we're going to be playing this card at the end of every turn if we're able to, by putting this card into our life and then playing it out with the 2 cost Sabo. So very powerful effect, just one of our main consistency tools. Just absolutely incredible card. As I'm sure most of us are aware, there's a reason this card is relatively expensive right now. Speaking of relatively expensive cards, next up we got Gecko Moria. However, the price on this one has dropped a little bit, and at the time that this video goes up, we may have received an announcement that over in Japan, this card is getting either banned or restricted. I would not be at all surprised if we get that announcement here in the near future. But at the time of this recording, we don't yet know what's getting banned or restricted. So, yeah, just something worth mentioning though. But again, another card I'm sure most of us are familiar with, and most of us probably also have a growing hatred for, but it is the 8 cost Gecko Moria, 9,000 power. On play, you get to return 1 4 cost and 1 2 cost or less from your trash. You play one of them rested, the other one active. Now, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the combo here, since this is the card that enables the main combo for the deck. So, you gotta put 2 Dawn on your leader in order to use his effect to trash a card and put 2 5 cost characters into your life. So, ideally on 10 Dawn, what you do is you're going to use the effect, trash something, put a Luffy and a Sabo, 2 Sabos. Typically, you're going to want to do something and a Sabo in most matchups is going to be the ideal play. And then what you're going to do is with the remaining 8 Dawn, you're going to play Gecko Moria, and he's going to grab back your 2 cost brothers. So whichever ones you put in your life, you're going to grab back a Sabo and an Ace, or 2 Sabos, a Sabo and a Luffy. Then you're going to use their effects to trash them and play the characters out of life, buffing you up to a 9k leader with both effects, as well as playing out the 2 bodies. Reason we want to be doing the Sabo is not only does he make all of our characters immune to KO effects, but he's also a blocker. And this means that our opponent can't just all in us. Even at a 9k leader, if we didn't have a blocker, they could just all in for 15 with their leader, or another more powerful character that they have on board, and we'd still need to counter pretty heavily to get out of those attacks. But if we have at least one blocker, that means they're going to have to split up their attacks, and doing so to attack into a 9k leader is really, really difficult for most decks to manage. So that's kind of the whole idea and combo of the deck, is that we want to set up in the late game, have our brothers in the trash, and then just start playing Gecko Morias to recur our 2-cost brothers so that we're able to maintain a 9k leader. Another really good card is that Egghead Luffy. If we're able to start recurring this one, it's essentially just card draw, which is really nice. So that is the whole kind of idea of the deck, and Gecko Moria is the card that enables all that. But what else do we have to go with the deck? Well, we've got Flampe. Now Flampe is a 1-cost, 1000 power character with 2k counter, which is nice. But really this one is actually here for the on-play effect, which states you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand, and then draw 1 card. So another tool to just help us churn through our deck and find the pieces we need, as we are a combo deck. But the big thing here is that this is a card that not only allows us to gain card advantage, but it allows us to take our own life. Why does that matter? Well, because we're only able to use our leader effect at 0 life, we need to get to 0 life. Now, most more competitive players are aware and have learned over the course of just playing the game that the best thing to do in this matchup early is avoid attacking into the Black Yellow Luffy leader. Reason for this is because by doing that, you're really just setting them closer to activating their leader ability and allowing them to become a 9000 power leader by playing 2 brothers a turn. And that just makes it a lot more difficult for them to close out the game. So generally what the opponent is going to try and do is they're going to not attack into the leader, and they're just going to start developing a board. And then if there comes a point where maybe you've gone down to 2 life and they've got a full board, that's when they're going to swinging while you're still a 5k leader and they've got a full board of attackers. That's what they want to do, because even if you live, you're gonna be losing a lot of cards out of your hand if your opponent is able to do this successfully. So our way of playing around that is by playing cards like Flampe, which allow us to take our own life in order to proc our leader effect. Speaking of cards to take our own life, we've also got Hiyori in here, another 2k counter. This one on play, we can add the top or bottom card of our life to our hand, similar to Flampe. But then you have the option to put up to 1 character or 1 card from your hand to the top of your life. So specifically top, it's not top or bottom. You can take 1 from the top or bottom, but the card you place, if you choose to, does have to go on top. Now, you don't have to put a card into life. It does say up to, so if you just want to take your life in order to bring yourself closer to activating your leader effect, you can do that. But most of the time you're going to be putting one of your 5-cost brothers in so that you can play it alongside one of the respective 2-cost in order to play it out of your life, giving yourself that additional 2000 power. So Hiyori, just a great fit for the deck. We've also got the Egghead Luffy from OP07. This is one of the biggest additions this deck got in OP07. It's a 5-cost, 6000 power character. So another 5-cost Luffy's great, just another target for our 2-cost Luffy, as well as our leader effect. It's got 1k counter, and it's got the activate main effect. You may place this character into your trash, and then if your life is 2 or less, you get to KO one of your opponent's 4-cost or less characters, and then draw 1 card. Now, despite the fact that you're losing the body, the fact that you're able to KO something and draw a card is absolutely insane. Paired with some cost reduction, which we are running a little bit of in this deck, you can remove pretty high costed characters and then just draw cards. Towards the late game, if you're able to establish your blockers and have them stick, sometimes you're just going to be playing out 2 Luffys just to draw 2 cards. It's just a way to maintain hand in the late game. Because you do have to trash 1 to your leader effect, one of the weaknesses that the deck had before is that over time you're just going to run out of cards in hand, and your opponent's just going to be able to KO or kill you because you don't have any cards in hand. Even if you are a 9k leader, they can just start swinging 9s, and eventually you're going to have to just let your blockers go, and you'll end up losing the game. So having a way to draw cards is exceptionally powerful, coupled with the fact that it is also a removal card. Really, really nice. Now this is one of the more interesting cards that Eggman chose to include in the deck. This is the 6 cost Edward Newgate from the starter deck, 7,000 power with 1k counter, and the effect on play, you have to, this is not a you may, you add up the top card of your deck to your life. Then you look at all your life cards, place one of the cards on top of your deck, and then return the remaining cards to your life in any order. Now, initially this sounds like you're healing because you put a card from the top of your deck into your life, but you then end up putting one of those cards back on top of your deck, so it's not really healing you. You're staying the same on life. But what this does allow you to do is either get a card out of life that you don't want to be there, something you want in your hand, you can put it on top of your deck so draw into it next turn. And then you have full knowledge of the remaining cards that you're in your life. So maybe you've got your Thunderbolts in there, so you can set those up so that if and when your opponent does decide to attack into you, you can trigger them. Maybe you've got some of your 5 cost characters in life. Now you can order them so that you can play their respective 2 cost in order to play them out of life for free. So just a lot of little things you can do there. But honestly, the biggest thing that I have found in the couple games that I've played is just being able to say like, oh, there's a Gecko Moria in my life that I would have trashed with my 5 cost Luffy in order to draw a card. Well, now I can put that card on the top of my deck so that I can draw into it instead. So those are just a little things. This card's actually been really good. On top of that, it is a 7,000 power body, which means in the red-purple law matchup, they do have to invest 2 forms of power reduction in order to be able to hit this with their leader effect, which is a nice addition as well. We're also running 2 copies of the Ivanka from the starter deck, another card that not all lists are running, but this one you do see more than the Newgate. It is a 3 cost 4,000 power character with 1k counter. It has blocker as well as the on play effect. You may trash the top or bottom card of your life, reveal 1 5 cost character from your hand, place it in your life face down. So again, this is another way we can put something into our life so that we can play it out with one of our 2 cost, the respective 2 cost brothers. And then it's just a blocker as well, and it is 4,000 power, which again means that Law can't just innately remove this with its leader effect. They do still need to invest some power reduction to it, which is nice. But one of the big things with this card is that you can actually, this is something you can grab back off of Gecko Moria as well. So there are weird situations where maybe you haven't gotten to 0 life yet. But you could do something like play Gecko Moria to do this, use one of your 2 cost brothers, get the buff, have a blocker, things like that. So yeah, for that reason, the Ivankov is actually pretty good. I've only played it a couple times, but I do like the addition of it in the deck overall. We've already talked about our 2 cost brothers. We've got only 2 copies of the Ace. This card is really good, especially in the red-purple law matchup. However, in most other matchups, the Luffys and Sabos are much more valuable, and deck space is pretty tight, so this is one of the things that ended up getting cut down a little bit. So it's a 5 cost, 7,000 power. Again, these 7,000 power characters and above are really good in the red-purple law matchup because it does mean they have to invest more than one of their cost reduction cards unless they're running something like the 2 cost Fire Fist event, as most of their reduction is in increments of 3,000. So that would only bring the 7,000 power characters down to 4,000, so they're still out of range of the opponent's leader effect. In addition to being a 7,000 power character, on play, if you have 2 or less life cards, this character gains rush. Important to note that this is an on-play effect, so if you do, say, play this while you have 3 life, and then through the effect of another card, bring yourself down to 2 life, it does not gain rush because you're now at 2 life. The effect is on play if you have 2 or less life, so when you play the card, you do have to have 2 or less life. If you do put this in your life with something like a Hiyori as your 3rd life and play it out, because this card is coming out of your life and then into play, you will be at 2 life then, so you can use this effect that way. But you do have to specifically be at 2 or less life when the card is played. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Makino. This is a 1-cost character with 0 power, 2k counter, and it's another card like the other 2ks that we're running. We can add the top or bottom card of our life to our hand. Great, another way in order to bring us down to 0 life so that we're able to start using our effects. But then you also get to look at all of the remaining life cards after you've taken one and return them in any order. So very similar to the Newgate, except you do have to take a life for this one, which is good for what the deck is trying to do. But then you can order triggers like potentially the Thunderbolt, or just order your 5-cost brothers so that you can play them out of your life with their respective 2 costs. Next up, we have Garp, and Garp is going to be the searcher for our deck. It's a 1-cost, 2,000 power character with 1k counter. Very similar stat line for most other searchers. You look at the top 5 and you can reveal up to 1 Sabo, Ace, or Luffy card with a cost of 5 or less, and then put it into your hand. Then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck. Now, the one thing to note here is, yes, this searches all of our brothers. It searches our Sabos, our Aces, our Luffys, both their 5-cost and 2-cost variants. However, it is not able to search any of our 2k counters, since at least as of the time of this recording, there are no 2k counters of Sabo, Ace, or Luffy in the colors black or yellow, at least not as far as I'm aware. Even if there were, you probably wouldn't run them unless they had effects similar to the 2Ks that we are running, allow us to take our own life. This kind of is what it is. So you're only going to be able to search your combo pieces with the Garp. The last character we have to talk about here is the 5-cost Luffy from the starter deck. This is a 6,000 power character with 1k counter. And the effect that states activate main, this character gains 2,000 power until the start of your next turn, so he does maintain this buff on your opponent's turn, very similar to the effect that the 2-cost brothers provide for your leader. And then, if you have 1 or more life cards, draw 1 card and trash the top card of your life. So this is another really important card, allows us to bring ourselves down to 0 life so that we can start using our leader effect. That way we can stick this on the board, and a lot of times we won't even attack with it because we need this thing to stick on the board so we can bring ourselves down to 0 life over the course of a couple turns. But then in the late game, this thing is just an 8k beater every turn, as you do still get the additional 2,000 power even if you are at 0 life when you activate it. One other nice thing about this is there are going to be cases where you end the turn with face up life cards because you used your leader effect, and it's a little annoying because the face up life cards, if you take them as damage to an attack from your opponent, they go to the bottom of your deck instead of your hand. Well, they're not going to your hand, but at the very least, if you have this Luffy on your board and some face up life cards, you can use the effect, trash the face up life, so it's going to your trash rather than the bottom of your deck, and then you get to draw a card. This is important because not only are you getting an additional card draw, but it's also hopefully bringing you back down to 0 life so that you can put the 5-cost characters you want there in there to play them out with your effect. So really important card for the deck. Definitely, I think this card needs to be run at 4 copies. Absolutely incredible for what the deck is trying to do. And then the last 2 cards we've got here are 2 events. We've got 2 copies of Ice Age. just a 1-cost event that allows us to give one of our opponent's characters -5 to their cost during a turn, as well as having a trigger that allows us to KO a 3-cost or less. The big thing with this card is our worst matchup is probably Bonnie. They're able to rest our stuff, lock up our board, and play big things. One of the most difficult cards for this deck to deal with, in particular, is the 9-cost Secret Rare Zoro from OP06. But with Ice Age in the deck, it does give us the option to play Ice Age alongside of an Egghead Luffy in order to remove it. The -5 will bring a 9-cost down to 4, so that it is within range of the Egghead Luffy. So, really like the Ice Age. It's one of my favorite ticks for the deck. And then we're also running 2 copies of the Thunderbolt 2-cost event. You may trash, well, you may trash the top card of your life, and if you do, you KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. And then the trigger just kills a 5 or less. So, another card that allows us to remove our own life, so hopefully bring us down to 0. That's just also a nice removal card. And when your opponent does decide to attack into you and you hit this as a trigger, feels really, really nice. So that is the deck. This is the deck Eggman used to get top 4 at that in-person Treasure Cup at Gencon a weekend or so ago. I'm not quite sure when this video is going to go up, but again, congratulations to Eggman. Credits go to him for this deck list. But I was really intrigued by the deck list and did want to try it out. I guess one thing to note, last thing, I know this intro's gotten quite long, but one card that is typically run in these black-yellow Luffy decks that is not run in this deck is going to be the Three Brothers Bond, which is an event searcher for Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. Same thing as Garp, it's just an event searcher, so another consistency tool to make sure we have all of the pieces for our combo. We're not running it in order to make room for cards like the Edward Newgate and Ivanka. And so far, I haven't missed this card too much. I do quite like this build so far in the games I've played, but this is a card that I would understand if you want to run it in your deck. But I want to try out the list that Eggman used. It's a very unique list compared to a lot of the other Black Yellow Luffy lists. And honestly, I've been having a lot of fun with this one. So that's the deck. These are the cards. This is what they do. And with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into some gameplay. All right, we're up against Law. We're going to go second. I don't think that hand's good enough. Gonna do Garp. Search out the Luffy. Play that out in a couple turns. Start burning our life. And he is also going to be an 8k body. Go ahead and do a 5. See what they do. Take. Now we'll do 6 with Garp. Now they either take again or give us a 2k. Give us a Sachi Penguin. Doing Kid. Act. Another Sachi Penguin. Go ahead and do a 6k attack. Take. We'll do Luffy using his effect. Crashing a Sabo. Draws us the little ace. That's great. Now they need to invest double Gordon if they want to remove the Luffy. If they have it, they probably will. They're already up to 8 gone. We'll be getting one back with the Eustace Captain Kid. The matter of, do they have the double Gordon? Probably. I was going to say chances are probably, given that they run typically 8 of them. Not to mention they also run a couple Otamas. They're just going to be playing out all those Gordons. Then they're gonna pass. I don't want to play out the new gate here. Okay. The Gecko Moria on top. I think we'll leave the Thunderbolt here. And the Luffy. And then we'll just go ahead and swing 7. At some point, they may get tempted to start attacking into us. And if they do, we've got that Thunderbolt right on top of our life. They are going to have to be... Ooh. Yep. It's going to go ahead and do that right away. Before they can... do one of the Sabos. So they're gonna have to use another Gordon or Reducer on this. Gonna be playing Miss all Sunday. We're gonna draw a Gecko this turn. They did use the Otama, another Reiju. We are on 10. No point in doing a Gecko Moria right now, though. We can play the Ivankov. This is a Gecko. This is a Luffy. Probably want the little Luffy in the trash. Would make sense to do that one. We'll do this. Bottom. Put in ace. Play the little ace. Play ace. Could play Sabo. They've used a lot of reducers already. Don't think we need the Ice Age. Ace. We try and clear their board here. Okay. Maybe we should have just been going for life. Maybe they didn't have anything. This is a Gecko Moria. Maybe I should have trashed this. Get a little greedy by trying to keep both. Give him Sabo. Okay. Didn't matter if I blocked or not, they could have done the same thing on the Ivankov. Like that. One Dawn left. Could have blocked. Could have blocked, I think. They're on, so they'll be going to 8 Dawn next turn. Um, 8 Dawn. Don't think I need to be worried about their board since I'm going to be a 9k leader. We want ace. I don't want the Luffy, I think. But that means we have to trash this, and don't draw counter. That's kind of bad. I think I need to trash the gecko. Could always just leave myself at 1. Well, that only puts me to 7, so that's bad. We do also have the blocker, and they have to get rid of that, so we should be fine if we trash the Luffy. So then if they get rid of it, they can just go all. So yeah, I think we need to trash one of the geckos and do a Sabo. So Sabo ace. Gecko. Always worried I'm gonna do something very wrong. Go like this. 7, 7. Like, I'm not worried about the board because they have to invest too much into these guys to attack with them. There is no way they can remove both blockers. There actually could have been a world where they did. If not for the Sabo effect, they could have had the Fire Fist bring this down and kill it. But because it is immune to KO effects right now, they can't do that even if they are running the Fire Fist. No point in defending that. They've got too many 5k attackers. Got the Rise Max. Ace. Still no point in protecting it. They've got too many. I'm gonna do Queen. Even if they backed into like a Shariah, we've got enough attackers that we should be fine, and that is what we see. So yeah, 9, 9. Don't have any kids, so I guess we'll start with a 7. Like, it doesn't matter. They do that. They give a card. They gave a card, and now they just lose. I get to go 7. They have to block, unless it's a rad beam, which it wasn't. And then we still got 2 more attacks. So that one was locked up there. Once we got the 2 blockers on board, I don't think there was anything they could have done to bring that game back in their favor.